Well, good evening, everybody. This is your host, Mason Sims, and thank you for tuning in to another episode. Joining us this evening is Senator Rex Rice. He represents the Pickens County area, and he's going to share with us some things that went well and some things that could have gone better during sessions this year. So we'll be happy to have him on for the second time of our show this year. So again, my name is Mason Sims, and let's get started. Good evening, everybody. With me today, I have Pickens County Senator Rex Rice with me. And Rex, thank you for joining us this evening.
How you doing, Mason? I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Well, I know that probably a lot of us have watched our last interview, but maybe those that don't really keep up with local politics as much, feel free to tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm just had a birthday, so I'm 68 years. I've been serving the people of Pickens County since actually 94, 1994. Got elected to the House and served in the House for 16 years. I ran for Congress in 2010 and tell people that I won and I got to stay home. Actually, Jeff Duncan won that race. There were several of us in the race. So I was out for 6 years, and then in 2016 got elected to the Senate and have been serving there for 9 years.
Okay, I mean, you ran against Larry Martin. Was it twice? Like you went into a runoff with him once, and then he won the next time.
That's correct. And my day job I'm a contractor by day, construction contractor. But when I ran for the House, I ran in '92 against Jim Mattis at the time and lost to him in '92 and came back and won in '94. And then when I got asked to run in 2012 for the Senate, ran against Larry and lost that race, and then came back in 2016 and won that race. And I've been around a number of times with no opposition. I tell people I've actually lost more races than I've won. So it's counting the Congress, I've lost competitive races. I've lost three and I've won two. So I don't have a very good record. How about that?
Oh, that's all right. I mean, I think Abraham Lincoln, he ran like in six total elections. I think he maybe won like two of them or something like that. But
I've four. Yeah.
yeah, but now he's in the history books as one of the most well-known presidents. Everyone has their own things. Yeah. So now that your session is over, just feel free to share with us some things that went well and some things that could have been better. So, yes, like what were some top three things that y'all accomplished?
Well, let me say this first. I think we had a great session. It's probably one of the better years that I've served. We ended up with 13 new freshman senators, which is a lot out of 46. The Republicans, with the new ones that came in and some of the races that they won, we had 34 Republicans to 12 Democrats. So, we were able to get a lot of stuff done. And not just because of us as Republicans, but the Democrats worked with us quite well also. So, other than maybe a few issues that we had going along, there were very few party line votes. A lot of people talk about party line votes all the time. This time, I mean, there was a lot of split party votes on a lot of different issues, and there were a lot of times all of us voted in favor of some legislation. So, and you asked what we did, school choice. We had some issues with the Supreme Court on the previous school choice bill. We spent time on that. Tort reform, we spent time on that. Energy, we spent time on that. So, I'd say those three were important issues, not the only issues, but probably three of the top issues we dealt with.
Okay. And another thing I was going to mention as well is I remember Governor McMaster, he had mentioned several times in the State of the Union that he wanted to start the teacher salary at a minimum of 50,000 a year. Is that currently something that the Senate and the state legislature are working towards?
We have not finished that yet, but we're getting very close. We're getting very close to the 50,000 number. We're definitely going to raise it. Our budget is the only bill that we have not finished we've not passed yet. That's in conference committee right now. With the budget, we are looking at income tax reductions, uh, not a flat tax, but just a decrease in the current income tax. We don't have any earmarks in this year's budget, which is very unusual. That's probably one of the first years that we have not had earmarks, whether disclosed or hidden, that I can remember. Uh, we've got money going in for bridges, DOT. We've got money going in to deal with the Hurricane Helene, the damage from that. So we've got several $1 million going there. So without the earmarks, this year probably is one of the best we've had for not growing government.
Well, that's good. And another thing, I think it was also, I remember I saw the liquor liability license. Is that something that you're working on too? Because I had noticed that, like, for instance, the pint station over in Easley, they started serving food for that same reason, just because the liability insurance was really high. So I saw that was something that y'all were working on too while you're in session.
We did. We worked on the well, we call tort reform, changing some of the laws. And you say, what did we get done? And what do we come back? What will we come back on? I think we'll be back on tort reform. We did make some improvements on that though. Whereas somebody that in the past, somebody that might be 5% or less involved in a situation could end up paying 100% of the settlement. And the jury was not aware of who all the players were. They didn't have the full picture. You can imagine if you're watching a football game and you could only watch one side of the field or the other, you may have a difference of opinion on something. So we've made a lot of changes in that. The alcohol server training was important. We did that. So I think I think we're going to see some improvements. We've given the bars and restaurants an opportunity to reduce the amount of insurance that they have to cover based on what they do. Can you,
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
yeah, my phone was saying reconnecting, so I didn't know if I dropped off or not. But, be back on it, and it's not only the alcohol and the restaurants, but it's also other businesses, the trucking industry, and all businesses. I was talking to a developer the other day that said his liability insurance had gone up 3 times on him. So the restaurants are the ones probably most vocal, but everybody's paying more liability insurance now. So we needed to do something just to improve the legal situation as a whole, and I think we did that. I think we'll be back revisiting it though, because I don't think we got enough done.
And also, to the thing, I haven't really been following it too much, but many were frustrated with Governor McMaster's plan of the health czar bill. Is that something that y'all worked on too? Like I said, I hadn't really followed it too much to know it step by step and what all it entailed.
Well, you've got DHEC got split up into 2 different parts, and I say 2 parts. One is kind of the healthcare side and the environmental side. And there was a lot of controversy over the individual that the governor had recommended for the healthcare side and also the environmental side. But I think the healthcare side was probably more controversial. Uh, and actually, he has to be confirmed by the Senate. He did not get confirmed by the Senate, so we still are in limbo on that. On the environmental side, the lady that was running for that did get confirmed by the Senate. Not 100%. There was, I think, probably 8 or 10 votes against her in there for different reasons. I think a lot of the reasons the votes went against her probably weren't ones that the public was aware of, but it was some stuff that we were aware of internally that created some of those no votes on her.
Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Yeah, my phone did the reconnecting thing too. But so it's no question, like at least with the state Republican Party, that there's a major division going on. Do you currently see that in the state legislature? Is there division, or for the most part, are you able to work together?
It's kind of interesting because I'm in the Senate, and what I see in the Senate is we do a lot of work together. I mean, even cross party lines to get stuff done, and and it's for the good of the people. I don't see, there are times that we disagree, and that's okay. But in the lawsuit reform, uh, there was a lot of controversy in that, a lot of discussion behind closed doors because a lot of the trial lawyers didn't look like what we were trying to do. The House, they've got some of their division over there, and I say that there's the Freedom Caucus in the House that appears to create controversy over there, whereas we don't really have a Freedom Caucus in the Senate. We're all uh, we don't have the pack mentality over there, so we're all individuals and we stand for what we believe individually. And sometimes we work together, and it depends on the issue because you can work. You may have three issues, and you may work with one group on one issue, and another one with another one, and another one on another one. So
Right. And I'm not sure how they grade this, but I just remember hearing on one of the local talk radio shows here that they had mentioned that South Carolina, the state government, ranks as one of the most liberal, and I was just curious on how they go about doing that. South Carolina, we always vote red for the presidential election, so that surprised me when I heard that. So I just didn't know how they grade that sort of thing.
well, I don't know where that's coming from. I feel like we are. I mentioned the budget earlier. We're trying to do income tax cuts. We're trying not to spend money. We're not doing earmarks. We did earmarks previous, but we had to identify who was putting them up. At one time, you could slide them in the budget, and you didn't have to identify them. But it depends on what you're looking at, what issue you're on. But I'm going to say this, and people fuss about things we do. Uh, you know, I invite them to come in and sit down and talk, and let's go over things, and because it's real easy to throw stones from the outside in. And I think we're very transparent. So it's we're there for the people, and if we're not doing what they want, at least tell us what they want, and we'll talk about it. Sometimes it's hard to do what you want, though.
Right. Yeah, and I noticed too that if people do vote 100% conservative, that looks good on paper, but I've noticed too, to be an effective, lawmaker, you have to have the ability to negotiate. And I just kind of feel like in our this day and age, it's kind of we have some people on both sides, regardless what political affiliation it is, it's kind of like their way or no way.
I can't disagree with that statement. So we see a lot of that.
Definitely. And I mentioned this before we did this tonight. Curtis, so the whole deal with Curtis Loftus, I hadn't really followed it in great detail, but I just noticed, at least around here locally in Pickens County, some were upset with current legislators voting yes to remove Curtis Loftus, and again, just being involved with politics in some shape or form, I realized too there's no pleasing everybody. But I just thought I would ask you, kind of like what led to your decision, the whole process, what's currently going on with Curtis Loftus.
Yeah, and I was one of those that voted to ask him. I prefer that he left office without us having to remove him, but I voted to have him removed from office. The bill, the resolutions in the House, I don't expect them to do anything with it. but I served on the subcommittee. I was not on there the entire time, but I was assigned to it after several of the members of the Senate left after the last election. There's a lot of information available. There's a lot online that's available. The If you go into the MySC, not South Carolina House, I believe I'm trying to think of the website right now. It's scstategov, I believe it is .com. If you go into that and you go to the top of that page up there, you can go into reports, and if you go into the Senate Finance, there's a fairly comprehensive report in there. It's over 600 pages that will tell you a lot about what's going on with that and why we came to the conclusions we did. And to try to put it in simple terms, the state treasurer's office back in 2015-16 era, not just the treasurer's office, but we were changing accounting systems. And in changing those systems, we had some errors, which I think is expected whenever you're changing from one system to another. But those systems, the state treasurer's office made a number of entries into an account there that made it appear to have money in it. And when the treasurer came before us in 2023, and I may have the dates off a little bit, he was asked about that account, and he says, "Is that account real, and is there money in there?" And he said, "Yes, there's money in there." Well, there was not supposed to be any money in that account, and never was. And in 2016 or 17, the treasurer's office employees were making entries into that account. I think it was about 22,000 entries that were made into that account that grew the account up to about $1.56 billion in value, but there was no money in it, no value really in there. But it was some adjustments that were being made. The treasurer at that time, I don't know whether he knew about it or not. There's no indication that he did know about it, but the folks in his office were aware of it. Some of them are no longer with them. At that point, somebody should have come to the legislature and to the governor and said, "We've got a problem. We need some help fixing it." And nobody did. Nobody came to us in 2023 or 24. The treasurer indicated there was cash in that account that could be spent, and we had to hire a third party uh, accounting firm, AlixPartners, to come in and do an investigation. And when they did, they said, "We found the problems. There is no money in that account." My concern is that I feel like the treasurer should have been paying attention to details. He should have been watching his people, managing his people, and he didn't do that. And I feel like that's a problem because he should have been watching the taxpayers' money. He is responsible for almost $50 billion in cash, and to not know whether it turned out about 1.8 billion total, to not know whether that money is real or not concerns me greatly. And I mean, he's a great politician, but I just don't think he was paying attention to details. He wasn't managing like he should manage. And if he'd have come to us and said, "I've got a problem," even in 23, if he'd have come in and said, "We've got a problem. I need help fixing it," I think it would have been all right. But to this date, that money's still on the books, and to this date, he has not asked us to help him, and that's where my concern comes in.
Right, and this is the finance committee that you're on.
I'm on the Senate Finance Committee, and I'm actually on that subcommittee that is dealing with the issue.
Right. Yeah, you would think if you had that committee there, they should feel supported and be able to go to the to the finance committee with any questions that they have. Yeah. So, do you anticipate him having a challenger in the upcoming June primary?
Uh, you talking about not this June, but a year out.
Well, the year out. Yes, that's what I'm.
You know, at one time he indicated he was not going to run. I think, probably what has happened now is made him decide he does want to run. That's what I understand. Uh, I would expect him to have a challenger, but I don't know. He may not. Uh, like I say, he's a good politician. I like him. I just my concern is he was not paying attention to details.
And this $1 billion. That's definitely a lot of money to just kind of not really pay attention to. Yeah. So right. Yeah. So with the governor's race going to be, the June, not this June, but next June, who do you anticipate all stepping up to the plate? I have heard that Pamela Evatt, Alan Wilson, and I've heard rumors too that Nancy Mace is running. Do you anticipate that being a crowded race?
I think it'll definitely be a crowded race. I keep hearing other names also, but yeah, I've heard those names definitely. It would not surprise me for somebody to run out of the Senate, and then probably a couple of others. I mean, you know, you could have 5, 6, or 7 in that race very easily, and all probably good qualified candidates. Uh,
And has anyone is I know that you've been in politics a while now, but if someone were to ask you to run with them as lieutenant governor, would you accept it?
that's an interesting thing. We jokingly talk about that, but I don't know that I would take that on. I think I think somebody younger than me probably needs to take that on. Let me say that.
Do you once your term is done with senator, do you see yourself running again for senator, running for another seat?
I'd like to run one more time for Senate. And I don't see running again. I ran for Congress in 2010. That wears you out, and it costs a lot of money. And that leads me to another point. One of the bills we just passed this week was a resolution. It's an Article 5 uh, Convention of States resolution to call for term limits for our federal House and Senate members. That's I think some people stay too long up there, and the money once you get up there, I've heard more and more times of House members and senators up there talk about they spend half their time fundraising up there. I don't think they ought to be doing that. I think they ought to be legislating. So that concerns me, and that's why I think there ought to be term limits at the federal level, in addition to them balancing the budget.
Right. Yeah, and I agree. Especially, well, if they're out there doing their job and they stay there for a long time, that's fine. But there's definitely times too where they just kind of seem like they focus on other things rather than to focus on legislature. Then I definitely feel like that's the time for them to have a challenger. And and to be, yeah, I agree with term limits as well. So, is there anything else that you would like to mention while we're on the air this evening?
Just an interesting. Sometimes you have interesting bills that kind of are funny in nature a little bit, and one of them that we passed late had to do with golf carts. Believe it or not, that seems to be something that we debate on a regular basis, and allowing golf carts to drive on roads that are speed limits of 35 miles an hour or less. And what we did this time was we left it up to local cities and counties to determine what roads you can drive on and if you can drive after dark with a golf cart. Now, it's got to be road legal to do that. In other words, you got to have lights and turn signals and seat belts. Matter of fact, that's one of the things. I believe the age is 16. That said if you're under 16 and you're riding in a golf cart, and I think about downtown easily. If somebody comes up and wants to come to the Silos downtown or the Pint Station or one of the other restaurants, Amici, and drive their golf cart up, from not too far away. I think they can go 4 miles is the distance that they can go. And they want to drive home at night. Right now, they can't drive home at night. Well, the city of Easley can say, all right, we're going to pass a local ordinance allowing golf carts. Actually, if you think about it, Pendleton Street and Main Street, as the current law is, those are main highways. That's highway, I think 93 going one way and 135 the other one. You're not supposed to drive your golf cart on main highways, even though the speed limit on them might be 25 miles an hour. But this would allow the city to say, all right, you can come up Pendleton Street and go down Main Street and park in a parking spot. So that's kind of one of those little, I'm going to say, fun little bills that we'll pass every now and then, giving the authority to the city and the county to allow golf carts.
Yeah. Does it apply to say like ATVs, like four wheelers as well? As far as that,
we still have that debate to go because there's some four wheelers around, but most in the city, most people have golf carts. In the country, a lot of people have the ATVs. They want to be able to drive on the roads, but the speed limit on most of the roads they drive on exceeds 35 miles an hour. You think about, if you go out toward Wren or somewhere like that, Highway 81 and Highway 8, I mean, those speed limits are 45, 50, 55 miles an hour in some of them. So that's another debate. But those guys a lot of them that live out on the farms or that go hunt and stuff like that, they want to be able to drive those. So I think we'll be talking about that next year.
that's good. Yeah, and I just often wonder because I was over at Edisto Island, up over there in the Colleton County, and there was one gentleman I saw him riding an ATV or riding a four wheeler on a state highway of 174, not wearing a helmet. He was definitely going the speed limit of 55 miles an hour, and I just and often wondered to myself if a cop would stop him if he did drive by. I mean, of course, his house wasn't too far. He was just going to fill his four wheeler up with gas. So I was just curious to something like that they would be stopped by a police officer.
I'm sure they have been. That's why the discussion we're having is being had.
Okay, well, absolutely. Well, Rex, I will say this too. Anytime that constituents have a question, you're one of the first legislators I've first got acquainted with when I first started getting involved in politics. I just wanted to, thank you for always making yourself available. And I think I speak for a lot of people where that definitely does not go unnoticed. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Like I say, anytime y'all need me, give me a call. We may disagree, but let's at least discuss it.
Absolutely. Yep. Our founding fathers, I'm sure they didn't agree on everything, but they're still able to get the Declaration of Independence signed, and we have the wonderful country that we do today.
There you go. All right.
And that concludes our show for this evening. If you have not already, please feel free to click like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates, and also follow our Facebook page as well. I hope that everyone's had a great week so far, and make sure to stay dry out there if you live where I do tonight, because it definitely is pouring. So on Wednesday this week, we'll have Mr. Philip Bowers. He represents the 6 Mile Norris, Central Clemson areas for state legislature, and he'll share with us some of his experience he's had since he first was sworn in January earlier this year. So thank you all for tuning in this evening. Good night to all, and God bless America. Thank you.